This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
In the ethics question, 2 marks are given if you have applied the knowledge to the scenario, and there are 2 extra marks really on top of all the other marks. Most people do well, some people do phenomenally badly by just listing out things like a list of principles and telling the examiner to sort it out themselves. So I just wanted to give you a couple of pointers. If we make up a little scenario, and I'll just point out the points I've made here in the notes for you. So we'll shorten this scenario no end, but we'll say, as a little scenario, let us assume that within the company there is a profit-based bonus. So there's profit-related pay. The point about that, of course, is that it's an incentive for people to manipulate information. Secondly, so there's profit-related pay, let's say for the finance director. Secondly, we will assume that they have deliberately not disclosed a related party transaction. If you're saying what's one of those, you need to look back in the notes and learn it, because very important standard. And thirdly, again, let's assume that they have accidentally misinterpreted some accounting rule about, let's just say the calculation of exchange differences on a foreign subsidiary. We'll assume that's the situation. And maybe just to add a bit of fruit, we'll also say that the FD has told the junior accountant that if they don't comply, they're going to go and meet Mr. or Mrs. Sackings. So the FD has threatened, again, the junior accountant with dismissal. So somehow the question will take a whole page to explain that, and then we distill it down. You say, right, let's now use this. Let me just show you how I can use the model that I've just written in the course notes to try and get some sort of decent answer together. So in terms of answer plan, the first thing is explain any accounting rules which have been breached. This is again, as usual, where people's answers fall to bits, because some candidates arrive at the exam with no knowledge of any standards except group accounts. Remember, you don't need to learn all the rules. You can't learn them all, but you can learn the basics of all of them. So we all know the basics of related parties. We all know the basics of calculation of exchange differences. So, or at least you should do by the exam. So answer plan. Number 1, explain the accounting rules. And that would be, of course, the fact that you would disclose related party transactions. Most of them tend to involve someone who's involved in the business. So it's probably, again, something with key management. Secondly, you would explain the calculation of the exchange difference. I've just put XD for exchange difference on a foreign subsidiary. So XD exchange difference. Again, and explain, of course, that it's recognised in other comprehensive income. Now think about any relevant principles which have been breached. Don't, and I say this on my knees, don't say there are 5 principles. It is honestly like waving a red flag at a bull with this examiner. He's a very, very nice person, but that's one thing that will absolutely inflame him. So we need to imply the principles. So again, we've said that they've deliberately not disclosed related party transaction. So that to me shows a lack of integrity. So non-disclosure was deliberate, wasn't it, of the related party transaction. Lack of integrity. Again, please don't turn up without knowing what integrity is defined as. It would be like arriving at the exam without your trousers. So integrity, as you know, is when they do not have straightforward business conduct. If you want to, you might be able to link it to professional behaviour as well. The issue with the exchange difference, though, is about, again, not about integrity. With the exchange difference, the person did not know how to calculate the exchange difference. So that's more, isn't it, linked to a lack of professional competence and due care. Again, what is professional competence all about? It's the fact, isn't it, that you've got up-to-date knowledge. Now, in fact, the calculation of the exchange difference hasn't changed in 40 years, so I'm not sure how out of date this accountant is, but link it up to the relevant principle. That's what they're looking for you to do. It's not hard, is it? That's why many people who've realised this are pulling out full marks on this part of the question. So, link up with relevant principles, and then you can do 2 or 3 in any order. Because they are in breach of principles, here's a free mark. Just point out that the FD is not acting in line with the ACCA Code of Ethics. So I can also mention that again, the FD is not acting in accordance with the ACCA Code of Ethics. Will you get a mark for that? Well, only if you type it. If you miss it out, you won't get it, but otherwise you'll get a mark. Half a mark? No, a mark. Finally, think about any relevant threats to objectivity. And can you see in my scenario the 2 of them? So one is, of course, so threats to objectivity. One is, you might be able to link up the self-interest threat because of the profit-related pay. Now I think about it though, actually neither of these particularly affects profit-related pay, but perhaps they put the exchange difference in the wrong statement or something. So I think you can forgive me on that. But what's the other threat to objectivity that you can pick up? Well, if the great big bad chief accountant has threatened the junior accountant with dismissal, we can also, of course, mention the intimidation threat. In terms of the treatment of the junior accountant, who is a shivering wreck of nerves. So we can bring in the threats. You see my little checklist there. So let's look back at that checklist again. So we've said accounting rules, mention the code of ethics, mention principles, mention threats, so words like self-interest, intimidation, they're probably the main two that you would see. And sometimes as well, it may be, if relevant, again, they may ask you about actions. So they may ask you for actions, perhaps for the junior accountant. What should they do? And of course, you would start with internal remedies. So again, maybe they can whistleblow. Maybe they can talk to the audit committee. Or they could even do something similar, couldn't they? Like try and persuade the finance director the error of her ways or his ways. Otherwise, possibly legal advice. Maybe considering resignation. Don't write anything silly though, like calling the police. There we are. Ethics questions, they're all a bit different, but they don't take long to practice. You can probably practice one in about 15-20 minutes if you just do a plan. And when you look at the answer, the examiner's answer, just see that within his answer, you'll see the accounting rule, a reference to the ACCA code, relevant principles, and relevant threats. There you are on ethics.